Hey, Stephanie, this is Tim Laurent. Just checking that you got my email about
Yes.
Mr. Keisha.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to try and resend it to him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got a minute to go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 4th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for Shawnee County, Kansas. I'm joined this morning by Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2, and by Commissioner Aaron Mays, representing District 3. I'm Bill Rippon, Chair, and I represent District 1. Due to COVID, we're conducting our regular meetings in a virtual format. Please mute your phone or computer till it's your time to speak. If you're a county employee or official, please give your name and your title. This will help the public following along with who is speaking at any particular time. If you're a member of the public and you need accommodations to listen or participate in the meeting, please contact our County Commission office at 785-251-4040. At 785-251-4040. Or you can email us at commission.mail@snco.us. That's commission.mail@snco.us. We'll be using a roll call vote again today, and we'll get started here. Madam Clerk, what say you? Oh, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry. Please mute your phones, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, Madam Clerk.
Okay, the first item is item 3, consent agenda.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business A, county clerk. There are no vouchers today. That for item A. Item 2, A2, consider correction orders.
I would move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Public Works, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C1-2021, amendment number 1 to contract C8-2020 with Collins Land Service to extend on-call real estate and land acquisition services through December 31st, 2023.
Good morning, Commissioners. Courtney House, Director of Public Works. Our existing contracts for right-of-way acquisition and appraisal services expired last Thursday. Anticipating that, I came before the Commission on October 29th with requesting permission to solicit proposals for services for the next 3 years. The first year would be automatic, of course, and the final 2 years would be optional, provided both parties agreed to extend. For acquisition services, we received 4 proposals. The Professional Services Committee met on the Monday after Christmas and unanimously selected Collins Land Service to provide that for the coming year, 2021. And because they already had the contract for services in 2020, we decided to just amend their 2020 contract. And again, the period of this amendment will be for 2021 with optional years 22 and 23. So with that, I look forward to your questions.
Any questions or comments?
Chairman,
Yes.
Kurt, this is just confirming that we already have Collins Land Service in place, and we've been happy with their services. And that's the reason why we are extending it in addition to having gone through the process.
Correct.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B2, consider approval to reject bid from Vale Bridge Property Advisors and request authorization to resolicit proposals for 2021 on-call real estate appraisal services.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. Unfortunately, for appraisal services, this would have been handled very similarly to the last item for acquisition services, but for appraisal services, we only received 1 proposal. That would be Beverage out of Overland Park, Kansas. Public Works feels that we can do better. I mean, when I say do better, I'm not saying that the Beverage proposal was bad. I just think we can get more interest at the benefit of Shawnee County. So I'm here before you asking to reject the proposal submitted by Beverage and to allow us to resolicit proposals going forward. Questions?
Any questions or comments?
I'll move to approve.
I'll
Or
second.
reject. I don't know exactly. What?
We're approving.
Reject and resolicit.
Yeah, I'll move that we reject and resolicit that.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Thank you.
Item C, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider approval of request for a revised project budget of $272,437 for the Crossover restroom facility renovation and to award bid to Shirley Construction to enter into contract negotiations for the restroom renovation and the noted general maintenance items for the tennis complex previously approved in February of 2020, with both projects estimated at a total of $349,715.75.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Director, Parks and Recreation. This morning, I am here to ask you to enter into contract negotiations with Shirley Construction. As you remember, you previously gave us permission to go out for proposals on this project. We did receive several proposals back, and Shirley was the low bidder and the most responsive bidder. And we would like to start contract negotiations with them with your approval. This is sort of a lengthy process, and as you know, we're also currently waiting on a grant that we hope to find out about in January. That grant has been pushed back a couple of times, and as you're all well aware of, we're sort of against some time constraints here. I have Bob Keeshan with Topeka Tennis Association is on the call today, and I think if you have questions for me or if you have questions for Bob, we're both here to answer those questions. So I'll turn it over to you.
Tim, this is we're waiting on a water, land, and conservation grant. Is that correct?
That is correct. And when we originally started this process, we thought we would know as early as September. But this process, the grant has been pushed back multiple times from the federal government. I mean, they're the ones that are pushing it back. It's not anything that we're doing or anything that we can control, but it is slowing down the project.
Have they given us any indication of when they might make a decision?
No, we've actually talked to them a couple of times over the last 2 weeks, and all that they're telling us right now is they hope that it's going to happen in January, but they won't give us a date. And on this project, you'll notice that we're also asking permission to increase our budget by $36,000. And I think when we originally had put our figures together, this was back in late 2019, early 2020, before COVID, and that has really thrown another wrench into the works. So we've actually asked the grant provider if we could increase the amount of money that we're asking for, and they're going to attempt to do that. So really, as far as the grant goes, we're just in a little bit of a waiting game.
Tim, if we go ahead and go into contract negotiations with the contractor, will it affect the grant in any way? I mean, will
the
it?
Negotiations will. Yeah, negotiating them with them will not. But if we start any construction, if we start funding it, then that would be a serious issue with the grant, probably rule us out, from what I understand.
And how much are we asking for the grant?
Well, what we're asking for is half of the total. And the total right now, and of course we haven't sat down with the contractor to do any negotiations, so we may be able to get this down some, but the low bid right now is $272,437. So we would be asking the grant to cover half of that.
Tim, I've got a question. On the tabulation of bid sheet, several of the bids have an addendum 1 and addendum 2 included. This one with Shirley does not. Could you speak to what those addendums are? Because I don't see it listed here.
Well, up at the top of that sheet, it talks about there's an addendum to do some a gate and a fence around the new the entryway into the complex will be changed as part of this process, or at least that's what we're asking to do. And there's some concrete work that will need to be done as well as part of that project. And if you look over on the far right, you can see that Shirley, I don't believe, included addendum 1 or 2, either one in their proposal.
I guess my thinking here is that a couple of the other bids did include those. One of which was only about $5,000 more. Is that something we need to consider, or was it taken into account?
I've got a team of experts here in the room with me, and they're whispering to me that that's actually incorrect, and that Shirley did include those addendums. And
Okay.
it just is not reported correctly on that bid sheet.
Okay. I would appreciate that. Thanks.
Mr.
Tim?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
I would just kind of maybe ask Tim, this construction schedule, since we're looking at possibly delaying any construction until we know back from the grant, because I mean, if I hear you correctly, if we start into the project, we would probably lose out on the grant altogether. But if we hold off, we might be able to fund at least half of the grant or the construction costs through the grant. So I mean, we're talking about over $100,000 that we're waiting on to find out from the federal government. How is this going to affect upcoming tournaments, schedule, construction schedule? Is this going to delay? I mean, we saw an increase just in the delay in the construction cost from February to now. If we go another 6 months, I mean, are we looking at another $30,000, $40,000 increase?
Well, I can't answer that question as far as the increase. I think that's a possibility. The way things are going right now, yes. I can't speak to the schedule. Yes, I believe that if we wait on the grant, and let's say the grant doesn't come in until the end of January. And, you know, we haven't discussed this with Shirley Construction or any of the other bidders. And if, you know, even if they could start on February 1, I think it's going to be pushing it to meet the schedule needs of Topeka Tennis Association and the tournaments that they're bringing in. I think we would be forced at that point to try to bring in portable restrooms and make other arrangements during, you know, one or maybe more of those events, depending on the schedule. I think that's why Mr. Keeshan is on the call today, because I think he probably would like to speak to that.
Thank you, Tim. The only thing I was thinking is I'd like to at least have the commission consider putting this on an agenda item near the end of February, because I had sent everybody an email, but it's actually the second weekend in April 10th through 12th. We have a 5-state tournament. Following that, Washburn has an event. April 14th, the 501 middle schools have an event. April 21st, all the county middle schools have an event. April 22nd through the 24th, KCAC, which is 13 colleges, have 3 days scheduled. April 29th through May 1st, we have another 5-state tournament. And this project was actually bid. I think one of the addendums I thought was to speed it up, but was bid to have construction during the tennis season, which for the boys may not be quite as difficult because there are restrooms over at the ball field. But when we had the girls here, we were told the portable restrooms were unsuitable and wouldn't work at Crossover. So we're concerned. We have 8 5-state USTA sectional tournaments this year, in part because of changes at the Plaza Tennis Center, but these are competitively bid, and it's difficult for us to see how construction can be done and have tournaments coexist very well. And then we have the future of not getting tournaments if we mess up these tournaments. I mean, this for TTA has been something that's been like a 2-year project, and I'm not sure, maybe Tim or Brian Toby can tell me better about the grant that was applied for, because in September, it looked to me like Brian was saying all the money for the state of Kansas was gone. So that's our concern and our request, that at least at the end of January, let's look at this and see if we can start. Thank you.
So Bob, you're saying you'd like to delay the start? Is that what
No, I'm
hearing?
not saying that's, I'd like to go forward, but I understand you've got $130,000 possible, but it was possible in August. It was possible in December. It's now possible in January. If the end of January we're not there, I'd like the project to start so that hopefully in a little over 2.5 months, we could get this done before the tournaments start.
Mr.
Thanks,
Chairman,
Bill.
Yes.
Tim, do we know what the status is with this grant? I mean, is there no money there? Are we holding out hope for something that doesn't exist?
No, I don't believe that's the case. I mean, we're working with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks and Tourism. They're the ones that are administering the grant. And like I said, we've had many discussions with them. And there's no guarantee we'll be awarded the grant, but there are funds available. Someone will be awarded this grant money. We're hoping it's us. I feel like we have a really good shot at it. It's just the timeline is the issue, as far as I know. And and to speak a little bit to Bob's points, I understand. I mean, we get it. We know that we're well aware of the schedule. We've been talking with TTA quite regularly, myself personally, trying to move this along. But it is a substantial amount of money. We're talking about total over $250,000 on this project. And from our standpoint, from the Parks and Recreation Department standpoint, that's a significant amount of money. That would be a significant amount of money to take from our budget in full. So we feel like not only are we saving taxpayers money, but we're also extending the amount of money we have to do projects at all locations. We're committed to this project, but it's not the only project that we're working on or that we have on the horizon.
Tim, what was the construction schedule, the timeline on this project once they start? How much time they need to complete the project?
I haven't had a chance to talk to Shirley. I mean, that's what we're asking today, to enter into negotiations with them. But I think that has to be the first question we ask. The bids all came back relatively close. Not all of them, but there's 3 of them anyway that are relatively close. And I think the timeline in construction could make a difference. If we find out from Shirley that they can't start until April, then we know that's not probably going to work. But maybe then we move on to the next person on the list.
Okay.
I wish I had the answer. I wish I knew exactly when they could start and when they'd be done. That would make this all so much easier and make us all sleep better at night.
If we don't get the grant, are we prepared to pay for the whole project if we have to?
Well, I mean, that's a question that I think we'll have to discuss. I haven't budgeted for that. So if we do that, I'll have to figure out where that money's going to come from. Like I said, I mean, on average, we get about $250,000 worth of money annually for deferred maintenance projects. And that would, this would exhaust, it wouldn't exhaust all of it because we've already budgeted for about half. So, but it would take, half of that money for sure. It wouldn't be ideal.
Tim, I know there's been talk of, potentially building a new clubhouse. Do we have any idea what the difference in cost would be from doing the bathroom renovations versus just knocking it down and building a new one?
We haven't spec'd that out or got any prices on a new clubhouse. I have to think that it would be quite a bit more expensive.
I'm sure it
because
would.
You're talking about new utilities and everything else starting from scratch. This project, we're essentially keeping everything inside the 4 walls that are there now. So I think it would probably end up being quite a bit more.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I mean, I know that this is key to the tennis association and, but when we're talking about $130,000, I would move that we defer action on this until February 1. I mean, it's a month out. Hopefully, a month from now, we're not going to see a huge jump in construction costs, and we would maybe have a more definitive answer on this grant.
Bob, how would that affect your tournaments then? Yeah, what?
Well, I think you could go ahead with negotiations to find out what the timeline is, Bill, because that was a question I asked also that I don't frankly know the answer to. Otherwise, if the timeline would be 10 weeks, I think you could easily defer till February 1st. My concern is, and Tim and Brian know better what the reality of getting this grant is, but I've sent the commissioners an email from September from Brian that I'm not as optimistic as Tim is, but then apparently he's still in negotiations with them. But it did indicate to me all the funds for Kansas had been exhausted. And the only way this grant was available is if other states didn't use their funds. And I find that a kind of a risky proposition. I might add, I had applied for USTA grants that probably would have been $5,000 to $7,000. And December 17th, I got the bad news that they would not be available because we hadn't started the project, and they wouldn't be available until next year because of COVID and what it's done to the tennis association. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a problem with waiting till February, but I would like to know what the timeline for Shirley or some of the other companies is, because if it's 10 weeks, I think that's a wise idea, obviously, to have a chance to get 135,000. But thanks for taking our interest into consideration.
Okay.
Commissioners, it's my understanding when we talk about this grant that the state of Kansas allocated the funds from the Land and Water Conservation Fund from previous years, money that they had not allocated. And so now they've been refunded or have new funds, I should say, not refunded. And that happened in July, late July, that the federal government put more money into this grant program. So the money that Bob is talking about is money that was there previously and that was allocated. This is new funds now that we're discussing. That's my understanding.
Okay.
I have no problem deferring it until February 1st. However, I guess I would like the chance to go ahead and begin negotiations, because I don't want to wait until we hear about the grant to start that process. If by some chance we don't get the grant and February 1 rolls around, I'd like to at least be in a situation where we can begin, if in fact we can find the funding.
Commissioner Cook, what was your motion?
My motion was to defer the action on this item until February 1.
I'll look at a calendar here. Well,
Isn't the request here, though, to just proceed with the negotiations?
Correct.
yeah. I wouldn't have a problem with proceeding with negotiations. We're not entering into a contract at that point, are we?
No, we would have to come back before this commission to accept and enter into a contract.
But Mr. Chairman, I believe the difficulty is if we were to approach Shirley Construction and start negotiating with them in good faith, and if the grant does not come through, and Mr. Laurent doesn't have the wherewithal to be able to fund the project, I think that, Shirley Construction will have been lining up work and materials and starting to pursue that. So I think that there's potential loss of goodwill in the community. Because if we don't receive the grant, that's the concern, is how are we going to?
I understand. Commissioner Mays, you have any thoughts on this?
My thinking is that I think it's fine to go ahead and approve this to start negotiations. And then if part of that negotiation process is Shirley Construction says we don't want to proceed with the negotiations, then I guess we're back to square one and we can, start over. But what I don't want to do is inhibit Parks and Rec's ability to get this process. I'd love to see it so that if in fact we do get awarded that grant, that we've got a good amount of the work done and we can act fast and get this on an agenda right away for approval. But I don't think that we need to keep it a secret from Shirley Construction that this is a possibility that grant gets denied. I think they need to know that up front. And I think as long as we're transparent with them, we don't lose any goodwill.
Yeah, I think in negotiation, we at least learn, have a better grasp on the timeline of the project. And I think that's critical. So, well, we have a motion. We have a motion on the table right now. Let me ask if there's a second for that. Okay, seeing none. I would make a motion that we do go into negotiation with Shirley Construction, and that's my motion.
And I'll second it, but just want to also just remind Tim, and I'm sure that he would do this anyways, but to be transparent and open with Shirley in regards to the current situation here, so that they're not surprised by anything that might happen in the future. So they're aware of all the possible scenarios here.
Okay.
Absolutely, we will do that.
This is Jim Kraus, Shawnee County Counselor. I don't want to throw everyone off. Is Tim authorized under this motion to move to an order of preference on this bid list if Shirley immediately states, well, there's no way we can get this completed under the schedule that you want? Are we authorizing an order of preference based on the bids, or are we just authorizing Shirley Construction? That's my question.
I think that's a great point, Jim, and that would allow us to move forward if Shirley, doesn't want to or can't meet our timelines. Anything that we can do that will speed this process along, I support. And to Commissioner Cook's comments, yeah, we'll absolutely be as transparent as possible. The last thing that we want to do is cause any of these companies to lose money trying to get ready for a project that may never happen.
Okay. All right. So
I want to make a point to say I think it will happen. I don't want Mr. Keeshan to leave here thinking that I don't think this is going to happen, but you know what I mean. If the grant doesn't come through, then we may be looking at Plan B.
okay. Commissioner Mays, you want to amend your motion or leave it as is? Or?
I was the second, you were the motion. So
Okay. Why don't we give Tim the flexibility of negotiating with another contractor if the Shirley doesn't work out, if he can't meet the timeline or for whatever reason, I guess.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
We losing?
we did.
I don't see him on the Hollywood Square grid here. I've lost him.
Well, I'll vote yes.
Okay.
Mays, okay.
And
Motion
then
passes.
do we just want to wait for him? And
Why
I'm
don't
sure
we
he's
wait?
trying to get back on.
I'm sure he is.
There he is. He's back.
All right.
Sorry about that. I dropped off for a moment.
Okay, Commissioner
Commissioner
Cook, your
Cook, we're
vote.
doing a roll call vote.
I would approve. I heard everything up to the point of the motion, so I would have second, or I guess, yes, I apologize.
Yes. All right. There you go. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Tim and Bob. Next item.
Item C2, consider authorization and execution of contract C2-2021 with Heartland Coca-Cola Bottling Company to be the exclusive beverage company for Shawnee County Parks and Recreation beginning January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2024, with proceeds deposited into the Building Maintenance Fund.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation. In September of this year, that we solicited bids to be our exclusive beverage provider. We got 3 bids returned, 3 proposals returned. The Heartland Coca-Cola Bottling Company was the low bid. They were the most responsive bid. We did meet with all 3 bids to discuss their proposals. And after going through that process, it was essentially Heartland was about, our rebates amounted to about 27% more through them than the next closest vendor. Their product was a little cheaper, and our rebate and the amount of money that we'll bring in from this contract was a little higher. So with that, we would ask permission to go with Heartland Coca-Cola Bottling Company as our preferred beverage provider. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I will move for approval then.
Second,
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next
Thank you.
item. Thank you, Tim.
item 5, administrative communications.
All right, at this time, we'll allow any department head needs to make any announcements to unmute. Not seeing any. All right, guess there's nothing. All right, next item.
Do you want to see if the other commissioners had any?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Mays. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nothing for me. Just Happy New Year, everybody.
Mr. Cook?
Happy New Year as well. I don't have anything additional to add.
Happy New Year from me too. All right, next item.
Item 6, executive session.
We do have a need to go into executive session, so I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes for the following reasons. 1, to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, specifically to discuss contract negotiations with AFSCME for 15 minutes. And 2, for consultation with an attorney for the public body or agency which would be deemed privileged in an attorney-client relationship. No action is expected today, so we will start that in 5 minutes.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by, who made the second?
Mr. Cook,
Mays. Roll call vote.
Rippon,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mays,
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. We'll see you guys in 5 minutes. All right. We have everybody?
We're still waiting for Ms. Beck.
Okay. All right. We are back in session. No action taken at this time, so we're adjourned. Thank you.